And good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Nathan McDonald, Chairman for the Northwest Region, Managing Partner CEO with Keiretsu Capital. Here again on Keiretsu Forum TV, talking about Inmedix and chatting with Kelly Charlton, who's an investor there. And Kelly, welcome aboard. Great to have you here to share a bit about your experience working with the company and some of the things that got you interested and how the due diligence process worked and syndication process, and ultimately some of the areas where you see investors being involved with Inmedix aside from capital. So welcome, great to have you here. If you could, just a little bit of background on yourself and kind of your experience backing companies.
Well, thanks. Actually, so I've got to say that Inmedix is my first investment, angel investment. But that said, my background is consulting and financial services, primarily mutual funds and brokerage. I had my own consulting business, working for some of the big names like Fidelity Investments and American Express and Putnam Investments, et cetera. Also been doing a little bit of volunteering for more than 10 years in the public education space, which is pretty interesting and pretty challenging. And now fortunate to be able to have an opportunity to be a part of Keiretsu, which I've really enjoyed, met a lot of great people. It's great to hear the entrepreneurs come in. It's a lot of optimism and, energy, really positive energy, a lot of great ideas, or I should say interesting ideas, and some of the ideas are, they're just not right for me, but there's a lot of really, it's great to hear the creativity and the enthusiasm and the optimism of the founders and their teams. I am on a due diligence team for another biotech company, which I've really enjoyed. So I was not on the due diligence for Inmedix, but I read the due diligence, which was quite a thick document, lots and lots of information. And so I would recommend to anybody, read the due diligence, make sure you understand what you're getting into and ask questions. So, with regard to Inmedix and Andrew, he's a member of Keiretsu Northwest, and have had a chance to meet him in person. He's also an investor, and so met him at several of the meetings and talked to him and really enjoyed talking to him and listening to Andrew ask questions and sort of get some insight into his thinking and how he gets to the root of solving problems and challenges. So then had some one-on-one conversations, which were really good, really interesting. And then I read the due diligence, and then talked to Andrew some more, and quite frankly, had to take some time to process the information, but ultimately decided to invest. I thought it was a good fit. I think it's interesting technology. I think there's, a lot of benefit, but, I've also done a lot of, research into the angel invest and venture capital world, prior to joining Keiretsu and making an investment. So I wanted to make sure that I understood what I was getting into.
Yeah, that's interesting, Kelly. Maybe just talk a minute about kind of what were some of the things that draw you to angel investing? What are some of the benefits you're hoping to get out of that process of making these kind of investments? A lot of people think about doing it, but it can be hard to kind of get into the mode of actually, committing the time and the energy to dive into it. So what were some of the drivers for you in terms of wanting to go down this path and really, look at deal flow and look at how you can get involved and help and invest?
So I am probably not typical in the sense that I tend to do a lot of a deep dive and a lot of research, and and get my head wrapped around some of the ideas and as well as some of the challenges. And there are a lot of challenges, and but I would say, it's interesting working on really hard problems. It's interesting meeting, a lot of really enthusiastic, smart, creative people, and hearing all these ideas. So there is, there's still a lot of innovation and creativity out there, and it's what is it, June 8th right now? So we have the coronavirus crisis. We also have the crisis right now with the racial inequity, and so especially now, being involved with, again, these really creative, motivated, smart, interesting people, it's really it keeps you going, so to speak. I'm a little brain cramped, but there's as I say, there's just a lot of really interesting ideas, and there's a great culture. It's nice to see people who are taking the initiative to invent the future.
Right.
Like there's, you can wait for the future to happen, or you can take the initiative and invent your own future. As I say, there's a great community. And then, coming down to Inmedix, I had a chance to meet some of the, again, I met with Andrew several times in a group setting, in a one-on-one setting, met some of his folks, did some research into the technology and the potential for the technology. And I think I think there's a lot of potential there. So in the early stage, betting on the horse. And then, in the later stage, we'll be betting on both the horse and the rider. Did I say betting on the horse? Betting on the rider, then we'll be betting on the rider and the horse. That's what I meant to say. So, on the jockey. So, and Andrew, what is it called? The neuroscan. And the field of immunoautonomics that he and his team have created are, have been published in the scientific papers. The terminology is getting picked up by other folks in that domain of rheumatology. And again, I think there's a lot of potential in other fields besides autoimmune diseases and the rheumatology field. So again, that's sort of part of the research that I've done, and the device measures autonomic stress, and as I mentioned, these are stressful times, and one of the factors for these autoimmune diseases is they tend to flare up when somebody has a lot of stress. So I think that can have a benefit in what do I want to say, in other diseases where you're trying to figure out if a treatment is going to work or it's not going to work, so I'm not a biotech person, but I can see how to use a thought experiment, a hypothetical example. If somebody has cancer and there's a lot of stress, for example, they have a lot of internal stress. That can affect potentially could affect their responsiveness to different treatments. I was on a due diligence for a biotech company that had a cancer treatment, and so that was kind of a interesting foundation for coming into Inmedix, understanding the science.
Yeah, it's a fascinating frontier of medicine and how stress impacts different therapies and different disease states, particularly chronic ones where a lot of it is autoimmune related in terms of, how do you actually deliver a treatment? It's really trying to create the capacity for the body to be able to be healed and to heal itself. And as you mentioned, we're in very stressful times and not getting any less stress these days. So, the more we can understand what the stress load is on the body, where are we in that range of stress impacts and how are those going to impact these therapies? Seems like a very critical element. So you had a chance to really read through the due diligence. Was there anything in the due diligence process, maybe just describe a bit about what was in the due diligence report and kind of what were some of the key things that you talked about? Obviously Andrew and his leadership skills, you talked about the technology, but all these things have big upside, but obviously there's also downside challenges and trying to make sure we got the bases covered. Any particular things in there that gave you comfort and kind of encouraged you that, looks like these guys have their bases covered?
There are quite a few things. Excuse me. I have a list, so I'll be looking down occasionally at my notes. As I mentioned, I had a chance to meet and interact with Andrew, and in a very positive way. So that was had some good conversations, and so that sort of sparked my interest. But looking down here at my notes. So Dr. Holman, Andrew, is a rheumatologist, and his this product, let's say ECG that has some higher level of diagnostics and analysis than the currently approved FDA ECGs. And so, so one of the challenges that he's had in his field as a board-certified rheumatologist is that maybe 20% of the patients respond to treatment. And so how do you determine who are going to be the responders versus the non-responders? And so that, you're not wasting time and money if you prescribe these expensive drugs and treatments and they're not going to work, maybe they need something else. So he's got more than 20 years of experience as a practicing rheumatologist, and so this is something that would benefit him. He's got, he's in the field. It's a product-first company as opposed to a company-first company. He has a need, and the other doctors in his field also have a need, and he's come up with a way to address that need. So he is, he's got that experience as a practicing rheumatologist. He knows the field. He's been president of the Rheumatology Association. He has a lot of, a deep and wide network in the rheumatology field. He's got some great advisors at some of the research institutions and universities. He's also very patient as a doctor. He has let's say, I can only imagine, I was not a patient of his, but I'm going to make a guess that he has a good bedside manner because he's very patient. I ask a lot of questions, and again, biotech isn't my field, so some of the questions that might be obvious to him, but not obvious to me. He very patiently is able to go, explain those things. So in terms of investing in the jockey versus investing in the horse, I think in this case, Dr. Holman, Andrew is, he's the right jockey. He also has the right horse because it's solving a problem that he's personally had in his business and his profession as a doctor. He's also, and one of the first things that came up was that he's the largest investor in his own company. He's got serious skin in the game. This is something that he's really committed to, and so with his experience, that personal commitment into the company and the product, that those were a couple of things that were positive. And then looking at the business model, again, he's got that personal experience as a rheumatologist, but then, he understands how the ecosystem, and shall we say the customers in the ecosystem work. It benefits patients because it's non-invasive and it's relatively fast. It takes 5 minutes. It's less expensive than a lot of the other kind of diagnostic, like blood tests and invasive kinds of diagnostic tools. So it helps the patients because it's non-invasive and it's fast. It helps doctors because it's non-invasive and it's fast. They can potentially diagnose more patients, and they can also potentially generate more revenue for their office. And it benefits healthcare payers because it's less expensive than doing a blood sample and an assay and things like that. So it benefits the whole each sort of customer in the ecosystem: patients, doctors, as well as healthcare payers, the insurance companies. So and there's it's a win-win-win for all of those customers in that ecosystem. I found it to be really, that part of it also to be compelling. Because, quite frankly, if it's not economically compelling and if it doesn't provide a benefit, then, there's no value. In this case, I think it provides both, a clear economic benefit, patients, doctors, and healthcare payers, plus, the benefit to the patients if the doctors can provide a meaningful diagnosis to the patients. It's low cost, it's fast, it helps the doctors be more effective, and hopefully gets the patients on a track to better treatment and hopefully recovery from their condition.
It's certainly great when everybody can benefit and the due diligence process goes through and tries to confirm that that's in fact the case, because oftentimes there's kind of weird dynamics in the marketplace that don't seem obvious on the top level, but when you dive deep, you begin to understand more what the dynamics are. Unfortunately, in healthcare, there's a lot of kind of reverse dynamics where even though therapies don't work, it's in some cases to the benefit of certain participants to continue, even though there's solutions like this available. So it's great to be able to validate all that. I know Andrew's been building his company angel backed from the beginning. As you mentioned, he's one of the largest angels in his own company, having provided significant funding for it. And he's been a great investor with Keiretsu as well. Any particular insight on the role that angels are going to play going forward here in terms of supporting the company, areas where the angels are going to be involved aside from capital to provide additional assistance and support?
Well, I personally, of course, I have a vested interest now that I'm an investor, but I think this is, this is Inmedix and Dr. Holman strike me as a very clear opportunity. And again, I did a bunch of deep dives into the company and this medical space, and even though I'm not an expert, it seems to have a lot of value in the ecosystem. Andrew's totally committed. Just so kind of line, and then as I mentioned, I think there's a potential for this once it gets FDA approved for rheumatology. I think there's a potential for this to be a diagnostic tool for other diseases, excuse me, where there are, let's say, for example, I'm just going to use cancer as an example, where there are millions of new patients per year, and I think there is a potential there, but right now, without the FDA approval, obviously it can't be used in that, for those kinds of conditions. So for angel investors, I think this is a good opportunity. Andrew has been super responsive to, all of my questions and phone calls, and so for me, investing in the public markets, there's sort of another aspect. It's June 8th. There's with the coronavirus, the racial issues and inequities, and the public markets are just keep going up and up and up, which doesn't, I got to confess, doesn't totally make sense to me. But the Inmedix, in my opinion, is really clear. And the thing is, if you invest in Google or Microsoft or anything in the public markets, you're not going to have a chance to talk to the CEO and some of the senior staff and really get hands-on in the early stages.
Yep, it's a lot of fun when you get a chance to meet the team, and particularly with great communicators like Andrew, and with all the studies and the research that they've done, very clear what there is and what you're investing into, and the mission and the core values of the company and their potential. So it's definitely a unique experience, and can be a lot of fun. So Kelly, really appreciate you being with us to share a bit about your journey as a new angel investor, and diving into due diligence and reviewing companies and looking at opportunities, and expressing a bit about what that is like, and kind of how that relationship works as you get to know a company, get to know their team, and ultimately get to the confidence and the trust that, hey, this is a spot worthy of investment and pursuing, and worthwhile ventures. So appreciate you being with us today. And any final comments for the audience here?
I've really enjoyed, I've been a member of Keiretsu since about November. So what is that, maybe 8 months or so. And it's been a really good community. Again, the members are really interesting, a lot of interesting stories, and plus a lot of learning opportunities. One of the reasons why I joined is that I'm always learning new things. There's always new opportunities and new technologies and new people doing interesting things, and so I would recommend it.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Kelly. We appreciate your participation, being with us, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.